Good evening. It is Tuesday, the 27th of May, 2024. It's just gone 9 p.m. UK time. And today I've got my guest, who is the head of one of my favorite 45s labels. In fact, Original Gravity. I love covers. I love reggae. I love Latin. So for me, it's a no-brainer. I love that label. Here he is, Neil Anderson from Original Gravity. How you doing?
Very good, thank you, Criztoz. How are you doing? How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm tired. I've just got back from Zagreb for a sort of We Love 45s and a funk convention at the weekend, so I'm sort of still recovering from that. Now, first thing, as always, with all my guests, musical influences. Who was it who first got you into music? Was it parents, siblings, friends? Who was it who really got you into the music?
We always had records in the house, 45s in the house. Mostly they were my aunt's records that somehow ended up in our house, but we would play them in the morning before going to school. We had a record player close to the dining table, and we would put on records in the morning. They were mostly kind of 60s pop, I guess you would say. Some rock and roll stuff in there as well. A lot of Beatles stuff, Stones. So I was always aware of that music. Father was more of a rock and roll fan than anything else. Well, he also really liked Johnny Cash as well. So yeah, I had those kind of influences from very early age. Got older siblings, so I've got two older brothers and an older sister. My eldest brother left home by the time I was 4 or 5. He's 19 years older than me, so he got married and young, and he left. So it was mainly my middle brother when he was kind of buying records in the kind of mid to late 70s, really. I mean, they were talking about the Jam and the Specials and stuff like that. My brother started buying that, and so I would listen to those and sneak in his room and kind of nick them when he wasn't there and borrow them. I still got a few of them, actually. My first favorite band was the Specials through him. And then a friend of his, he said, okay, if you like that, have a listen to this cassette. And he gave me a cassette of Prince Buster. So I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and I became aware of early ska, and I thought, this is great. So that kind of led on, started listening to, so just got some friends at school who were a little bit older than me, and they were mods, and we used to go to this youth club, good group of us, maybe 10 of us or whatever. We'd kind of take the record player over and play a lot of mod stuff. So I got open to that, but then I'm talking about the Who and the Small Faces. But then I started to realise that the Who were covering, especially early days, and a lot of the Stones and people like that covering the early Chicago blues stuff. So that led me off into that as well. So quite a young age, and had good influences, I guess.
So obviously you get influenced and nicking records from your brother to borrow. What sort of stuff do you then start buying?
Sure. And the first record I ever bought was Hong Kong Garden by Susie and the Banshees. I heard that on the radio and really liked it, and I think that must have been about 1977. And it's pretty cool first record to buy. Kudos to me for that being my first one. But I must back it up by my second record being Dippity Doo by the Smurfs. So I was still a kid, but
amazing. Amazing. You need to mix those two records into each other.
Mash up, yeah, that could be interesting. Yeah, that could be interesting.
And where were you buying them?
Like every town, there was a little record shop in town. Just up in the town centre from where I live, a place called Holliston. Used to be a record shop called Tracks. Spend a fair bit of time in there, going and buy the chart stuff. I started to buy two-tone singles, jam singles, stuff like that. And then a little bit later on, started buying kind of reissue LPs, Who and stuff like that. And Charlie were doing compilations of like there was one from Ripley to Chicago or something like that. It's like a compilation of blues stuff that Eric Clapton had covered. So I started buying a lot of stuff like that. It's Reading, that was the Atlantic Soul reissues, a lot of reissue LP. HMV in London used to go to, as little mods, we'd go up to Oxford Street and pick up the Phoenix List fanzine that Eddie Pillar used to write, and go into what's it called, the Cavern, to buy clothes and stuff like that. And we would go to HMV and pick stuff up.
HMV was massive back then.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because you're saying obviously there was a record store in the town. It's interesting to see now that we seem to be getting back to that. And if you go to most towns, certainly in the UK, most towns or cities, probably even in Europe, really, there seems to be at least one record store. So it's interesting that it does seem to be reviving.
Yeah, well, for sure. I mean, vinyl's definitely had a big revival, perhaps 10 years, maybe even a little bit more. his links to pressing plants as well. A lot of the pressing plants were mothballed and sold off, and then it started to become more popular, and now pressing plants are opening as per record shops. We still haven't got one in my local town. Any decent sized town, quite likely to have one. I mean, certainly live quite close to London, so you've got quite a lot of choice in London. It's good to see, yeah.
Right, let's get back to the story though. So, from sort of buying those early records, including the Smurfs and Susie, where did you then go from there? You know, did you just collect more and then sort of get into music through that?
Well, I mean, I probably being interested in music predates even really knowing about records or kind of being that aware of it. I mean, obviously we had them at home, but I have a memory from nursery school. I haven't got a lot of memories from early age. I've got a pretty good memory. People often comment to me, like friends of mine. I'll say, "Do you remember that time when?" And they're just like, "Oh, I can't believe you remember that." But I can actually remember an episode at nursery school, and funny enough, I live about 3 doors down from where I went to nursery school. It's strange how things work out. But I remember being given a little drum to play. We were doing ensemble piece, and the teacher or the person running the class was on the piano. She said, "When I raise my hand and do this, you all stop and I will finish the song." And I kind of remember thinking, yeah, but the drummer finishes the song, and so I should finish the song. I mean, obviously I did what I was told, well, but I can recall it, and I could only been 3 or 4. So I had this kind of interest, and I used to kind of hit stuff with boxes and stuff out in the backyard. And it's something I saw on TV. It's an old kind of news magazine program called Nationwide. Some of your older listeners or viewers might remember it, and it was kind of tacked onto the end of the news, and they had an article about a young drummer, and I just remember thinking, oh, I could do that, and was out in the back picking up sticks, hitting things out in the backyard and stuff. So I've always kind of felt compelled to make noise, I guess.
So, where does it go from there? Do you start doing a bit more music and getting into a band?
I got a drum kit when I was, for my 12th birthday. My parents bought me a drum kit. I'd been playing on ice cream tubs and tins for several years. There used to be this game. It was snooker was big, right, in the early 80s, and there was Ray Reardon's Pot Black snooker set. Tiny little table about this big, but it came with a couple of cues that were very similar size to drum kits. And again, it's my middle brother's toy, but I nicked the cues and I used those as drumsticks, and I would play along to cassettes that I recorded off record. So a lot of specials, madness. Early on, I had a twiglet tin to make the timbali sound that you could hear on the like the reggae. It's like a timbali sound. Some reggae players have a timbali, others it's like a rim shot sound on the snare. So I had a twiglets tin that could make that sound, and my snare drum was an ice cream tub with felt pens in so it would rattle. And I did that for a long time, and a lot as well. I would be in my room a lot playing along, and by the time probably 5-6 years, and then I got to my 12th birthday, and maybe there was enough money, and the parents decided that I could have the drum kit, and I had a drum kit, my first drum kit, and then I started getting involved with a couple of other people who were interested at school, kind of early 80s really, and it was a bit of a strange time for live music really. Perhaps there was less people really into it, so it was a little bit harder to find people, but we had a little band at school and did a couple of little gigs at school. It was pretty ropey, but good fun, and all part of the development.
But it's all good that you're doing this from a young age, and obviously, like you say, honing your skills on what you had with you. And that was like, you were limited as to what you had, but you managed to make something out of it, which then moved you on to the drumming. Where did it go from there?
Didn't really do that much through my late teens. We hit the early days of the club scene, the rave scene, really. Not quite the beginning. From about 89 to, or maybe 1990 through to about 94, we were doing a lot of clubbing. So I was playing in a band with some older guys, kind of pub rock. So it really didn't sit well with we're going out clubbing, and then I was, I can't go to Camden Palace this week. I've got a gig in a pub with these guys who are a lot older than me. So kind of blues rock. But I mean, obviously I like blues and I like rock. So it was good, and it was a good experience for me. So I was playing, but I never really sort of tried to take on making a career from it until a little bit later. I think once the kind of rave scene died down, I would kind of raved out by about 95. I started playing with some school friends in a covers band, and we sort of took that seriously. We started actually writing stuff, and I started playing with some other friends in an originals band, and we were kind of, you know, developed the act so we could release music and maybe, you know, it's all about getting signed. You know, worked on that intermittently for, well, probably about another 10 years after that, I would say. Did quite well with one of the bands. We had some airplay. Steve Lamac's Record of the Week, a nice single. Good, had a good songwriter, good original material, but unfortunately kind of lost the plot a little bit and it all fell apart, which is not an uncommon story. So at that point I'd started teaching drums, so that became my focus for until really I got to the point with Original Gravity. But I was kind of always playing in the background. I was, you know, always kind of not dabbling, but I was always involved in the background.
It must have been great though, being able to do all of that at that time, because obviously this was before, you know, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have like sort of on stream music. So to be able to be part of it, that must have been really enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, I always enjoyed being involved with music. It does come to a point where you're like, the particular band that I was talking about, we would rehearse a hell of a lot, you know. It was good because it gave a good work ethic, which I then carried through. It's not always fun putting creative work together because it depends on who you're working with and what the dynamic is. Sometimes it can be quite frustrating. So, but I think every experience, I mean, literally everything that I've done throughout my life, I'm using skills all the time doing what I'm doing now. You know, even, you know, I worked for my father's company, a furniture company. I learned how to invoice. I learned how to do a sales call. I learned how to keep, you know, on a spreadsheet. You know, I drove a van. You know, so you know, everything that I've done, I kind of look at it and I think it's just a good experience to get where you are or where I am, or, you know, where I'm at, really.
And like you say, those are all vital skills, because effectively you're running a label, but you're running a business, you know, and obviously the fact that you're learning all of this stuff from a young age just teaches you experience for how you're going to make it later. And it's, you know, if you weren't doing that back then, you might not be doing what you're doing now. You know,
No,
there's all those things, isn't it? The influences.
yeah,
So music is one
yeah.
influence, but it's also whatever else is going on in your life, isn't it? And the people around you and what work you're doing. It's all sort of one big sort of thing. So where does the musical journey go from there?
Focused for probably nearly 10 years on teaching. So I fell into that by accident and sort of kind of got on quite well with it. Did quite, you know, found it quite easy to do. I was quite good at it without, you know, to my surprise. I didn't really know how it would be because I never had any lessons. So then I started to realize, like, you know, all the experience that I'd picked up over the years was valuable for passing on to people. So I really focused on that for a good 10 years. I would say I started working for somebody else, didn't really like a few things that they were about, and decided to set up on my own. So I really worked at that pretty hard for, you know, a good 9 years. I'm still playing drums predominant. No, I was playing a lot of bass then. Actually, I played. Friends of mine, we started the band in the mid-90s, stopped, and then started again around 2010. We're a good sort of kind of covers band covering modern Britpop, band called Homegrown, and I was playing bass for them for a long time. So I always had that going. Started to make my first steps into recording during that period as well. Just really kind of trial and error. Got a Mac with a sequencer on, and started to figure out how it would work. And so I started to playing around with recording probably since around about 2010 actually, and I didn't release anything until 2017.
And what was that release?
Well, that was the Switchback by Floyd James and the GTs, and it had on the B-side cover of Green Onions.
Yes. Green Onions is one I play quite a lot, because again, there's a bit of a story behind this. So the guy I sort of got me back into 45s and sort of started all this whole thing is my mate Adrian. We used to DJ together as the original 45s, and his dad used to be a DJ, rest in peace, Graham, but he always used to play that at the very end of his set. And it's like to hear an amazing cover of it. I mean, they're both great. You know, obviously the original's great, but your cover's brilliant. So how do you deal with covering something that's so iconic?
That particular cover, I'd actually recorded it partially or mostly in 2010. I had a guy, we were running the music school, and I had a young guy come to teach piano or keyboards for me. He was just on Saturdays, just teaching youngsters. And he was a Hammond organ player. And he had the full setup. He's only a young guy, and he kind of partially built it or refurbed it. He was into electronics. Now he works in electronics. He's got a great career and earns a lot of money. But he said, "Oh, it'd be great to record it." And we used Green Onions for student gigs. So where we get the young drummers to come and play, perform in front of their family. This guy Tom Quinn, he was teaching. He had all this. He was into this kind of the Booker T stuff and all that kind of like instrumental champ and all that. He knew all that stuff, which is unusual for a young guy. So I was like, oh great, we'll put some of these in the set for our student performance. The kids can learn Green Onions, right? It's a pretty simple structure. During the teaching, we teach in groups, so it makes it easier to have the recording of the track without the drums on for the kids to practice to, and then I could upload it to the website and they could do it practice at home. So I was kind of making a load of I made a lot of them, actually, a lot of tracks, and Green Onions was one of them. And he said, well, if we're recording it, let's record. I think we did Time Is Tight as well, maybe Give Me Some Loving. We actually set the Hammond up and recorded it with 3 mics and stuff, and then I used it for the student performance and kind of forgot about it. And then I had the idea for the switchback, and that comes from a bit of a long story, but it comes from mountain biking. Actually, I do a lot of mountain biking, and the idea for that comes from going down this steep track in Switzerland, doing all these switchbacks on the bike, and turn to the left, turn to the right, and that's where I kind of got the idea for it. When I'd finished the switchback or came close to finish it, it still wasn't certain that I would release it on vinyl, but in the end, I came to the conclusion I've got some ideas. I'm making music. It's no point just having this on my phone for me to listen to, or I need to do something with it. So I started to look around a little bit, contact a few labels, and had a couple of people say, oh yeah, we might be interested. And I got a little bit impatient. So I thought, well, I'll press some and then see if I can sell them. I was talking to a friend of mine, a DJ called Andy Hill. We were talking about records, and I kind of thought, well, maybe, if I present it like an unknown record, maybe it will pique some interest. But of course I needed a B-side. So then I was like, oh yeah, that version of Green Onions, So I actually went back and just got it out and thought, actually, the organ sounds great. Just re-recorded the drums and bass and the guitar, and I had my B-side. And it was a good move as well, because, to be perfectly honest, when it first started, people were far more interested in Green Onions than they were the switchback, and I did realise that. It's like, okay, if I put this on the B-side, it might drag the A-side along a little bit and get me started.
And that was 2017?
2017 was when, I finally took the plunge and did the first release, yeah.
How did you get the name?
Original Gravity.
Yeah.
It's to do with mountain biking. I had this idea about gravity and making original material, the whole mountain biking, do a lot of downhill mountain biking, calming down a little bit now. I'm getting a little bit older, but we've sort of, me and a good group of friends have done some pretty tasty stuff like World Cup downhills and stuff like that. And the idea of just gravity taking you downhill and the kind of buzz that I get from that. So when I was thinking about the name, I wanted to do something with gravity, and I just thought, okay, let's write some original material, and that's it really.
Great name. And how did that do? How many did you press, and what was the sort of reaction to it?
Pressed 500, because at the time, I was totally ignorant. I didn't know anything about vinyl pressing, but I found a company, obviously it's all pre-Brexit, company in Holland. Thought, I haven't actually got this money, but I want to take a risk. I want to take a punt. I think I've got some ideas that could work. Let's try it. All of the pressing, and then kind of worried about selling them afterwards. I knew a couple of people. I mean, Andy Hill, well-known mod DJ, and he's good pals with Sean Chapman, who's also quite well-known on the Northern Soul circuit. I kind of thought, with those connections, maybe that'll help. And it did a bit, but really mainly it was kind of just getting on social media and just trying to share a video. I made a video for the switchback. It's another long story about that. A friend of mine helped me in mind, because the vocalist is from Texas. Couldn't really get him to do a video, so enlisted the help of a very good friend of mine, sadly not with us anymore, a real gentleman called Theo Dare, and he mimed to the video for me. So I was using that as a kind of tool for sharing on social media. So it was pretty gradual. I don't know how long it took me to sell those. I mean, the second release I did was probably a good 9 months after, so maybe it was kind of 9 months to even start to break even, where I thought maybe I can try another one, so yeah, very slow process to start with.
Because obviously the 45 scene back then, sort of 2017, is very different to the 45 scene in 2025, isn't it? You know, in 8 years, it's amazing how much it's moved on. I mean, have you noticed that as well?
Yeah, I actually think a big factor, and it's certainly a big factor in the label's development and my development, was lockdown. Because I think we'll talk about this a little bit further, but there were a lot of people that started DJing in lockdown, and there were a lot of people watching live streams in lockdown. I mean, I mentioned again, Andy and Sean were really doing a really great job. I mean, Andy in particular was very up on the front foot with how he was going to present his streams. He was really thinking about them as shows from the off. So I think a lot of people kind of caught onto that and were, and had time, perhaps had a bit more spare cash. And I think it really was a good time for the vinyl industry. I think it was where it made a difference, actually.
Yeah, I think it definitely gave it a boost. Obviously, I know, my experiences from what I did, and obviously it's ended up with me being on this platform and doing these sort of interviews. That's what happened for me. But
Yeah.
I think you described yourself as like a lockdown DJ. So that's when you first started DJing.
How that happened was, again, coming back to Andy Hill, he started doing Facebook streams, and like a lot of people, after a while, I mean, for the first part of lockdown, there was kind of, I don't know, 1,500 people looking at his Saturday evening streams. It was great. He's got all these rare records, real mod DJ, really, really good guy and really good DJ. And he and Sean were doing an hour each, and it was a really nice thing every weekend. And then Facebook kind of started to cut people off with the I'm sure you know all about this.
Yeah.
With the cut, because of the royalty payments and stuff like that.
Copyright and
Yeah. So they had to move over they wanted to move over to OBS. Andy's not brilliant with technology, and Sean, who'd been first to me, is even worse. But I kind of always managed to find my way around technology not too bad. So I kind of said, okay, look, I took on the job of making the transfer from Facebook over to OBS, which would then be done via Mixcloud. So I kind of learned, I downloaded a copy of OBS, went, we can have multiple cameras here. We can have video footage streaming behind, mixing the cameras. And, I quite enjoyed putting it together. And so at that point, I did have some decks, but I wasn't considering DJing. But I kind of went through this it's quite a painful process with them. But I went through this whole process of learning how it all worked. And then I thought, well, I've got records, I've got decks, I know how to use OBS, I've got my own records, and I'm making new stuff. I'll start streaming. So that's how I started really doing it. I think I maybe DJ'd once before lockdown as a guest of Andy. Went along my first time, one of his local events, and played some tunes. I think it was once, and then I kind of went, okay, forget all about it. But once I learned those skills, it's kind of like, okay, well, I'll have some fun with it as well. Consequently, I haven't DJ'd that much, but I really enjoy it. I really like doing it. I've done a few live events here and there, and I always say yes if I can make it when I'm asked, because I really like it. But it's not something I really pursue just because I'm busy. But if anyone says, like, very much like yourself, invite me down in, and I'm just like, yep, I'm there. I love it. I've DJ'd in Europe a few times, and it's very cool. I really enjoy doing it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and that's the We Love 45's London event we're going to do in September, Sunday the 28th September. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, that one. They're all fun. Just got back from Zagreb, and they're meeting a whole new scene and thinking, oh, right, okay, so there's loads of DJs, but there's also like funk, and it was like a film premiere as well, and it's just creatives, meeting little pockets of creatives in different scenes with getting 345s. Yeah, it's amazing. So you start sort of DJing in lockdown. Are you doing some streams or not?
Yeah, I was. I mean, I would follow, not every week, but most weeks I would kind of follow on from Andy. So Andy and Sean used to do the Saturday nights called Chills and Fever. And they used to do, I think Andy would do 8 till 9 and Sean would do 9 till 10. And then if I was, available and felt like doing it, I would say, okay, look, I'll do the 10 till 11. And we did New Year's Eve and stuff like that. I was doing it, and occasionally just off my own back, just when I felt like it. I don't know how many streams I did during that period. Probably a good 30 or 40, I would have thought.
And obviously at the same time, you're still able to sort of produce. And I think we talked about this last time. You had the benefit of the studio being maybe in your garden.
Well, I'm kind of in one of my studios now. This is my loft space. That's kind of my office and studio, and I do a lot of the recording from here. I also own a rehearsal and recording studios. It's about 20 minutes away from me, a place called Welling Garden City, called Farm Factory, and we run a music school there. So there's 7 there was 7 rehearsal rooms. You use one of them as a teaching room now, and a little recording studio. So there's other stuff that gets recorded there as well. Once the kind of initial period of lockdown where you were allowed to go to work and there wasn't going to be anybody there because we couldn't run rehearsals or lessons. So I was doing a lot of the work from home, but then going there, and I still do that if I need to record something loud like drums or percussion. But if I'm kind of editing or mixing, or maybe I'm just DIing a bass, playing some keyboards or whatever, I'll do it from here. So it's probably about 70% done from my loft. Yeah.
Amazing, and that also helps, I guess, because there's not a commute. You haven't got to get to somewhere to sort of do it, and it just means you can be as creative as possible and make the most of time, really, because that's what allows you to be creative, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I do try and avoid. I don't like the commute. I mean, if I go to Welwyn Garden City and I go through the wrong time of day, I've got to go through Hertford, which gets rammed with traffic around rush hour, and it drives me nuts because I'm just like, it's 25 minutes or extra 30 minutes here that I can't do anything with, maybe I can listen to some mixes that I'm working on, which is I'll do a lot. It's kind of my monitoring. It's the final kind of check I do on anything is in my van. I have a little van, and that's my, not a brilliant sound system or anything, but that's kind of my final check on masters. But the commuting time just would drive me nuts. I just think, I could be doing something productive.
Let's take it a little bit back to the start of the label. Obviously, 9 months in, you start doing the second one. Does it eventually start sort of snowballing a bit? The label's just sort of doing better?
When the first lockdown came in, I just had to the pressing plant the EP, which had Looking for My Baby on it. The catalogue number for that's 790. But I started at 781. Don't ask me why. I just picked that number. So I did 9 releases in 3 years from October 2017 till March 2020. So it's a bit less than 3 years. 9 releases, and then from that point, I've probably just about finished my 109th, I think, this weekend. So in the 5 years, it's 20 a year. The first 3 years, it's kind of like 3 a year. Lockdown period, I had the music school and the rehearsal rooms, and initially it was an awful, you just didn't know what was going to happen, and then it kind of started gradually get sorted. Okay, we had about 70% of our students stay with us, and we taught them online. So I had a bit of scrambling to get that set up and work out how to figure out how that could work. And then, the government started coming in with, okay, like, you're in the entertainment industry, we're going to cover this certain amount of money. So I got kind of like, okay, I'm going to worry about that all going. And so I had a good period where really all I would do, we would, spend a bit of family time. We'd sit out in the garden, go for my walk that I was allowed to go for. Other than that, I was just making music. So after maybe the first 3 weeks of lockdown, it was like, okay, this is all a bit strange, but that's kind of settled. I'm just going to crack on and make stuff. So that's where it really snowballed. And of course, going back to what I was saying, get a test pressing of a new release, and I'd send Andy the test pressing, and he would play it on his stream, and people would just be buying it directly off the stream, and so it was a very good time. It really helped from that perspective. It really helped build the label, and of course builds your confidence, because it's okay, I'm making this stuff and people like it and they're buying it. Okay, I'll carry on making it, and it literally has been that.
And does it help you in terms of sort of moving in different directions and trying stuff that perhaps you wouldn't otherwise try?
To start with, I was very much focused on what I thought would probably be my target audience, and what I know most, probably at the time, more about, and had more help with, would be the mod audience. So the Switchback was really geared at the mod crowd, soul, R&B. The second single was Chills and Fever, which was kind of a 60s garage mod thing, really. But I wanted to try other things, had some other ideas. I definitely wanted to try make some reggae and ska, but it took me a little while to build the confidence to do it from a couple of, not just the perspective of my ability to do it, but the perspective is, are people going to like it? Are people going to buy it? I kind of do take what I think maybe is calculated risk. So it's like, okay, I'd like to try this, and if I don't try it, then I'm not going to try it. It's not going to happen. So there's only one way to make it happen. You have to make it happen, and it's kind of a bit of an ethos, really. It's just like, well, I could wait around for someone to come along and go, oh yeah, we're going to release your records, or just crack on and do it, and this is kind of where I ended up, really.
You just sort of manifest it, don't you? And you're like, okay, well, it'd be cool if that happened, and then you make it happen.
It's very helpful if you have people that can help, or the right people, or people with ideas, or people with contacts, and then you need a little bit of luck as well. I mean, one of the things that happened at one point was that Juno came in and started buying stuff on wholesale. That builds confidence, because they're all doing suddenly X amount of copies all in one go, and you're kind of thinking, okay, well, this is working. This is another approach,